I've been asked by my friends to record some of my stories, and since I'd already had begun a sort of a history of memories, I thought I would just turn those into my stories. And it sort of all starts, of course, back in 1948 when I was born in Germany. My father was part of the occupation troops in Germany after World War II, and my mother joined him shortly after he was there, and I was born in Germany. We lived there for 3 years. The first street I lived on, I always thought was kind of funny because it was called Bierstatter Strasse, and of course I'm a big fan of beer. So anyway, we were there for 3 years, and then flew from Germany to the United States. Now, flying over the Atlantic in the early 1950s was quite an adventure in those prop planes because they couldn't fly very far without refueling. But I don't remember much because I was only 3 years old, and the next stop was in Southern California, where my dad was initially tasked to close down an old Army depot, and then he was transferred to Norton Air Force Base for the remainder of the 2 years while we were there. We lived in Whittier. I don't remember a lot about that either, but I do, that's where my brother was born, so Don came along while we were there. And then the only other thing that I remember was I got in a fight with one of the kids in the neighborhood. And as kids do, it was over a stupid thing. It was over a 2x4. And so we were fighting over this 2x4, and I finally either gave up or lost or whatever. And the other kid gets the 2x4 and decides that he's going to hit me with it. So he smacks me right on the top of the head. You know, it was crazy. Blood was going everywhere. And I was just standing there crying. The kid ran away. And momentarily, the paper boy showed up, and I took one look at me and said, "Can I help you?" And I just, at that point, took off running and ran home and yelled, "Mama!" And of course, my mother took one look at me, blood everywhere, and it freaked her out. And she wanted to take me to the hospital. But my father wasn't home. He was, of course, probably away on travel somewhere and had the car. So she had to go to a neighbor's house and then find somebody to finally take me to the hospital where they did whatever they did. I still have a nice bump on that head, though, even today. You know, I don't remember a lot about school in Germany, but I do remember a few things. I remember I decided to play hooky one day. I went to where the bus would pick me up to take me to school, and just decided I didn't want to go to school that day and turned around and walked away and played by myself for a while. But I got bored pretty quickly because nobody else was playing hooky, and I couldn't go home because my mom would get upset, so I didn't do it again, but it was kind of interesting. I also decided that that playing bartender at school was fun. You know, I don't know why, but I would during playtime I'd set up a bar and get the kids martinis or beers or whatever. And the teacher sent a note home to my mom explaining that probably wasn't the best thing for me to do, so I had to stop that. But I did have some fun with show and tell. I can remember, see, my dad was a big hunter in those days, and he used to go deer hunting, yeah. And I could remember walking down the stairs at our big hotel or apartment complex there, and I could smell the fact that there was a fresh kill in the basement, because Dad would take his deer down there and hang them for a while before he cut and wrapped them. But I could smell it. So I went down into the basement, and sure enough, Dad had a deer hung up there, and he wasn't quite finished with it, but I thought it was pretty cool, and I picked up one of the feet that he'd cut off and stuck it in my pocket and took it to school for show and tell. Well, having a bloody deer foot in your pocket all day is probably not a good idea. And my mother reminded me of that when I got home and took it back out. And also the teacher let my mother know that bringing in dead animal parts for show and tell was probably not the best thing to do. So one other deer story that's kind of interesting. My dad loved to hunt, as I mentioned, and he was always struggling to find a place to hang his deer after he would kill them. And for a while, we had a nice cabin out in the woods, and he would hunt out of the cabin, and that was kind of fun. But when we were at the apartments there in downtown Wiesbaden, he, was struggling, and so I can remember that my mom came home one time after Dad had been hunting, and she walked into the bathroom, and there was blood and guts everywhere. I mean, it was just disgusting. My father had decided to gut and cut the deer in the bathtub, and had not had a chance to clean up yet. So I guess it was a pretty disgusting sight, and my mom was pretty angry, as you can imagine. Well, she went from there, angry as a hornet, into the kitchen and saw that somebody was cooking something on the stove. She thought, oh, okay. So she went over the stove and lifted the top off the pot, and immediately screamed and dropped the pot, because looking up at her from the inside was this deer head that my father was trying to boil the meat off of. As you can imagine, neither condition repeated itself ever again. Anyway, I thought that was kind of an interesting story. So we moved to Riverside for a year while Dad was in Korea, and Riverside was it was a lot better than Illinois, and so I decided that I was going to make the best of it and just really enjoy that year while Dad was overseas. So one of the things that I did a lot in Riverside was boxing. I set up a speed bag, and I had a punching bag, and I would work on those during the day. I was trying to basically just build up some muscles and get some coordination skills and that kind of stuff. I was a 8th grader, skinny kid, and so I thought this would work. And it was good. Well, Robbie, the next door neighbor, thought it was cool too, so he set up a ring in his backyard, and we would box. And I guess Robbie didn't feel he was any match for me at all, so he invited a buddy of his from school. Now, this buddy was a 9th grader and a lot bigger than me, and was known as kind of a tough guy. So I didn't know if I wanted to get in the ring with this guy. He was taller than me and had a better reach, and was undoubtedly stronger, but he didn't have any boxing skills. His skills were street fighting. So we got in there, and it didn't take very long, and I got in a couple of good hits, and he all of a sudden decided he'd rather not get hit. And I was chasing him around the ring. So the next day at school, he bragged to all these tough buddies that I was a good guy in the ring, and you probably want to stay away from me if you get in a fight. So that helped me have kind of an image there that kept people away, but it wasn't entirely successful. We had a deal in class one time where some idiot grabbed my sweater and wouldn't give it back, and the teacher saw us kind of arguing about it, and he told me to get up and get my sweater. Well, I don't know that he really understood, but I went over to get it, and the guy wouldn't give it to me, so I clobbered him and took my sweater back. And the teacher wasn't too pleased, but he had sort of told me to go get it, so he didn't say anything. So a few days later, while I was in PE, this same Yahoo came up to me and decided he'd fight me again. I didn't take very long, and again, I put an end to that fight, and he didn't bother me anymore. One other fight I had was we were playing, a bunch of us were playing football after school, and I tackled one of the other guys who was a big black man, and his buddy didn't like the way I tackled him. It was kind of I don't know what was going on. Anyway, so I ended up getting in a fight with the guy that I tackled, and we got at it pretty good. The fight was broken up by some other kids, some high school kids, but it was pretty obvious in my mind that I, won the fight. And, it was later on when people would kind of mention it, I'd just say I'd go take the guy back out and do it again if we need to. And, I just played the tough guy, and I didn't have any more trouble. Although I did find out that black man turned into be a real tough guy in the streets there, Riverside. People didn't want to screw with him, so I'm sure glad that I was no longer in the Riverside. One more thing happened that's of significance, but kind of sad in a way. I brought a guy home from school one day. I didn't know him very well, but we were hanging out, playing, and we were running around outside the house, and I happened to go by my sister's window, and I glanced in, and there was this guy in there with my sister and her pants down. Obviously, he was another perv. I don't know what Riverside is, pervs. Anyway, he saw me, I went after him, he took off. I didn't catch him, but I did catch him the next day at school, and proceeded to pound the shit out of him. So anyway, my mom didn't want Denise to have to go through it, testify to it and relive it, so nothing ever happened to the guy. So in a way, I'm kind of glad I beat him up, even though actually that fight got stopped by my mom, of all people. Why she was at school, I never did find out.